So with all the insanity that we get hit with on a daily basis, a lot of things tend to slip through the cracks, and they either don't get reported, or even if they do, there's so much else out there that you miss it, or we have to move on from it before we even talk about it. There's another example that I want to talk about here, and that is yet another major corporation has bent the knee to Trump and paid him off in the form of settling a lawsuit. And that is Google, which owns YouTube. And they just settled a lawsuit with Trump. I didn't even know he had sued them. I mean, he sues so many friggin' people, you can't even keep track of all this. But they settled with him when, of course, they had no legal reason to settle with him. And this was a lawsuit that the 34-time convicted felon insurrectionist brought against YouTube and Google because they banned Trump. They kicked him off of YouTube after he tried to overthrow the Republic on January 6th. You know, a lot of these social media platforms banned Trump, Facebook, Twitter. And so Trump sued. And YouTube and Google just settled with him for, I believe, $27 million. I'm trying to recall because I read the story a couple days ago. It doesn't really matter. I think it was 27 million, but the dollar amount doesn't really matter. What's important here is the fact that it happened. Like so many of these other companies and institutions who have bent the knee, paid him off, paid him protection money, like a mob boss. That's what this, because there was no reason whatsoever for them to settle. You know, you have no right to a YouTube account. If you get kicked off of YouTube, good luck trying to sue YouTube and Google. And not just because they're a massive corporation that has, all these resources and you probably don't. That's not the reason. The reason is, even if you had the resources, if they wanted to fight you, they would win. You have no legal right to a YouTube account or a Facebook account or any of these other things. And if you get kicked off of YouTube, especially as a regular person, if you don't have billions of dollars to where that they would give a damn, you're just a regular person and they don't give a shit, you have no chance. I mean, you have no case, you have no legal case. Nobody's going to return your phone calls or your emails. They don't give a shit. You're just like a gnat that they swat away. You can do nothing to them. That's what would happen to you or I, which is, by the way, one of the reasons I have 3 YouTube channels. There's many reasons, but that is one of the reasons. Because if I lost this channel for some reason, I would have no recourse. And I know that. And at least with my other channels, I have backup. Now, they could delete all 3 of my channels. And again, I would have no recourse. But, when you are a mob boss president and corporations are cowards, $27 million is nothing to Google and YouTube, right? Nothing. So let's just pay him off and we'll be protected. Or so they think. They might be protected for, a day or two. Yeah, that Donald Trump, if there's some other reason, if YouTube or Google pisses Donald Trump off for some other reason, he'll just sue them again. So this protection money that they pay doesn't actually protect them against anything. As you've seen with other companies who bent the knee, paid the protection money, and then, that didn't get them shit. Like, look at ABC, right? Trump hates ABC now because they brought Jimmy Kimmel back. Now, ABC paid Trump off back when he sued them for reporting by, or a comment by George Stephanopoulos, right? And so they paid Trump off in that lawsuit that they didn't have to settle. And that bought them exactly no protection whatsoever. But this obviously is a huge problem with these cowards. There is no courage whatsoever in corporate America. There has proven to be very little courage in academic America, in colleges and universities. And there's been virtually no courage anywhere you look. Institution after institution just folds. And all that does is encourage more of it. Now, think of all of these lawsuits, completely frivolous lawsuits. The ABC one, where he sued, and then the lawsuit where he sued CBS over a 60 Minutes interview, and they settled that because they wanted a merger with Paramount, and on and on. I mean, there's so many of them, just completely frivolous. He sued a pollster because he didn't like the poll. I mean, so many of these things, completely frivolous. Imagine if each of the, or before I move on, just other examples, friggin' law firms who should know better, right? And these big law firms who have the resources to defend themselves. And honestly, you know what? I'm sick of it being portrayed as, they did it because it just cost, it would cost them millions and millions of dollars. Bullshit. That's not true. Don't fall for that shit at all. Why would it cost millions and millions of dollars? Now, it could cost millions and millions of dollars if you hire tons of lawyers, but these cases are so friggin' simple, okay? You don't need to hire some high-priced law firm where they're going to put 50 lawyers on the case and charge you $10,000 a minute. Okay? You don't need to do that. These cases are frivolous on their face, okay? A brand new lawyer who just got their friggin' license last week could defend these cases. They're legally and factually meritless. So what do? You have a few depositions, then you write a motion for summary judgment, and you get the thing thrown out. Okay, it doesn't have to cost millions and millions of dollars. But putting that aside, imagine if instead of folding and paying this thug off, they actually defended the lawsuits. They would win. Oh yeah, I was going on, I got off my little tangent there. I'm going to go back onto my tangent. I was talking about these law firms who all bent the knee. Obviously, they know that the legal cases against them were bogus. In fact, some of them actually did stand up to Trump. And they didn't have to spend millions of dollars. They didn't have to spend lots of man hours defending themselves. They simply filed a motion with the court to have, they challenged the executive orders. And the executive orders were struck down, just like that, by federal judges, because they were so on their face ridiculous. Didn't cost these law firms much time or money at all to defend themselves. And neither would these corporations who have bent the knee, neither would it cost them tons of time or money to defend themselves. And imagine if they had. They all would have won their lawsuits, and what would happen as a result of that? Donald Trump would stop doing this shit. If he keeps losing every single time, he doesn't get a dollar. He can't go out and brag that he won. And, he can't yell, anytime a friggin' reporter now asks him a tough question, he chastises them, says they're fake news. That's why your company had to pay me $20 million, this, that, and the other. He wouldn't be able to do any of that stuff because he wouldn't keep filing these frivolous lawsuits, because he'd be a loser, a proven loser every single time he did it. But instead of just banding together and fighting these things, they all individually caved. And so we see this all the time, time after time. He just continues to go after these corporations, and they continue to bend the knee. They do what he wants. And we all suffer as a result of it. We're getting screwed as a result of it. Anyway, just thought I'd bring that up since it kind of slipped under the radar with everything else going on. With like Trump telling the generals of the United States military that their new job is going to be using force against the American people on the streets of the United States. So I understand why something like Google and YouTube settling a frivolous lawsuit might, slip through the cracks. Anyway, thanks for watching. Talk to you again soon.